So first we have 𝐂𝐞𝐲𝐻 Ahmed. He's Vice President EPMP Business at Cambium Networks, followed by Cameron Kilton, Chief Technology Officer at NextLink Internet, and then Tim Sill, VP Technology and Business Development at Alpha Wireless. We'd love to hear from you. If you have a question for our speakers, please add it to the Q&A tab. There is an open Q&A with Cameron, 𝐂𝐞𝐲 and Tim at the end of the session, which will hopefully be about 20 minutes. Any questions we don't manage to get to will be answered via email. So I'd like to start by welcoming Tim.
Thank you, Dee.
Thanks, Tim.
Okay, can you hear me?
Perfect.
Okay. So welcome everybody for today. We wanted to get together with Cameron and 𝐂𝐞𝐲 today to talk about ways to help you reduce your actual deployment costs within rural markets. We're going to start off, like Dee said, we're going to start off with having 𝐂𝐞𝐲 give a Cambium overview on their EPMP3000 platform, followed by what Cameron and the NextLink guys were able to achieve in this new development, and then finalizing with me talking about how we come in and approached the collaboration partnership with these guys and helping them not only meet the performance needs that they have, but also the financial side, because we know that in the WISP area, it's very price sensitive. So any way to reduce ongoing OpEx cost is paramount for the operation of the networks. Okay, that being said, I'm going to hand it over to 𝐂𝐞𝐲 and let him provide information on their products today.
Okay, super. Thank you, Tim, and thank you very much for Alpha Wireless for inviting Cambium to this webinar. I'm going to take about 10 to 12 minutes, kind of go over a little bit of Cambium background. Obviously, this is, at the end of the day, a Cambium and Alpha partnership to talk about the solution that we presented to NextLink. So next slide, please, Tim. Thank you. For those of you not familiar with Cambium, 45-second update. Cambium is a spin-out of Motorola Solutions, and originally very well known in the fixed wireless industry with the brand Canopy, which at some point we also merged with Orthogon Systems of the UK, known for a lot of point-to-point products in a sub-6 band. In 2011, Cambium came out of Motorola Solutions and became Cambium. And in 2019, it became a publicly traded company. So our heritage continues to be in the wireless industry, primarily focused in the service provider, in many cases as the wireless internet service provider. So the whole affordability and providing broadband in an affordable manner is very much in our DNA. Naturally, we also have large carriers and telcos also starting to get into this space. So it makes a lot of sense that with today's demand and broadband, that we have ecosystems and partners and solutions that Cambium brings to the table, such as this one. Thank you. Tim, next slide. Very quickly, I just covered this. We have multiple R&D offices, and there's a lot of radios out there from Cambium Networks, all the way back to the Canopy original model that's still hanging out there, but somewhere up in the 7 million nodes shipped globally. Next slide, Tim. Thank you. All right. One of the key theses of this webinar is about affordable broadband, right? How do we cut down on the costs of deploying broadband wirelessly? And this slide kind of summarizes the approach we have taken from our portfolio perspective. So first and foremost, right, we're not talking about licensed spectrum, right? That obviously has a cost associated with it. Equipment tends to be expensive. So let's just say this is in the 5 gigahertz and to some extent 2.4, which obviously is very crowded. And then the 6 gigahertz, which is a very exciting space coming up in the North America market. And then ultimately, the trick of the trade in terms of building affordable platforms that can still cater to, the needs of NextLink is how do we leverage what is built in the IEEE chipset-based solution, right? Wi-Fi chipsets that are in the billions in terms of volume shipment. So you can bring down hardware costs. You can go to a system on a chip that has the RF component built in, integrated, PA lineup and things like that. So you don't spend a lot of money on discrete hardware. And the challenge there is when everything gets started to compact and you're leveraging the price point, you're limited on how much tweaking and modification you can do at that level. I think that's where Cambium and our EPMP portfolio comes in, is we went through the stages of a 11N and then an 11AC wave 2, skipping a wave 1, and really building a proprietary solution on top of this hardware. And that's our biggest differentiation, because we're able to leverage the cost advantages of that hardware, but bring our differentiation in the software. So it's a proprietary MAC layer. We're turning off all the Wi-Fi nonsense, creating a deterministic behavior, able to sync base station to do frequency reuse, everything that you need to provide that reliable service using this platform. So that's kind of where the Cambium EPMP portfolio comes in, and that's kind of what we are focused on today in terms of the antennas that go with it and how NextLink is using it. Thank you, Tim. Next slide, please. Right. This essentially is the genesis of it. So while I talk about the standards-based solutions with the proprietary solution on top, there is a heritage of Cambium. So I just want to highlight that from a hardware perspective, we still have our original Motorola solutions, Canopy heritage. So we're building good hardware. So if you open up one of our products and look at it, yes, you will see some rugged product, well-designed, high quality. And then with that, marry up the innovation and what we've been able to do on the software side, you answer the question of affordable broadband. Next slide, Tim. All right. The product we wanted to talk to, thank you, is really the EPMP3000, which is where the very innovative alpha antenna comes into play today that Cam will highlight as well. But this essentially leverages a 4x4 multi-user MIMO solution. But we do happen to have a single antenna that you can attach an AP to that has some use cases. But long story short, this is a powerhouse of a product, with multi-user MIMO being the headline feature, as well as higher modulation, support of 80 meg channel. And fundamentally, the C2I required to get to the higher modulation seems also to be better as we've evolved. So this is sort of the product we're looking at, and this is the product we're talking about in terms of providing that high broadband speeds in an affordable manner. Next slide, please, Tim. Perfect. Right. So without getting too deep into the technical stuff, because I think it's more fun to see data and results, is that this solution does have that the filtering for adjacent channel interference mitigation. It has an optional uplink beam steering antenna, and it does do some beam forming when you're not really transmitting to two subscribers at the same time. But fundamentally, what you see in this picture is the fact that there's two subscribers you're able to send data to at the same time. So if you're getting, X amount of throughput at the base station, by having something like multi-user MIMO, you're potentially doubling the sector capacity. So a phrase that we use a lot is about spectral efficiency. How many bits per hertz can you send? I mean, we're talking about unlicensed spectrum, so things are very noisy and crowded. So anything you can squeeze out in a 20 and a 40 megahertz channel and doing frequency reuse is key. Therefore, from a Cambium perspective, multi-user MIMO, massive MIMO, these are the things that you'll hear a lot about. This is a chart that I think, Cam, you might have something similar later on, but not to steal that thunder, but this is a monitor wireless page on the EPMP3000. And really all I'm trying to show is the concept of grouping. And what you see in the red bubble is the fact that each subscriber, based on their physical location and how we're able to null steer and do the beamforming, can pair up with other subscribers. Some cases you have subscribers that can have up to 26 peers. So the best way to think about this is as you're sending data, the more the AP is overloaded, the more there's congestion, it starts sending data to two guys at the same time. And that's how you bring that advantage of multi-user MIMO. Next slide, Tim. Right. Just a physical picture of how that is. This is a very small sector, needless to say, but those green dots are all become, depending on the azimuth and the degrees they're located in, the 2x2, the 4x4 solution, grouping two subscriber, the odds of getting that becomes really high. Needless to say, you go to higher order MIMO, such as 8x8, the odds become even higher that you're able to group subscribers. So that is kind of the foundation of the 3000. And and Tim will kind of touch on that on the antenna that we ship today, which is essentially a 4x4 multi-user MIMO antenna that you can attach one AP to. That is optimized and designed to serve. And we did work with Alpha, and we collaborated to build another unique antenna, which I'm sure Tim will go into lots of details. Next slide, please, Tim. Right. And this is sort of my last slide. And then we'll take some questions after this at the end. Any questions are good. But what you see here is a live network performance with EPMP3000. Again, before we look at the graph and the data, and I explain that, the fundamental point of this portfolio that we're talking about from Cambium ties in very well with the goal of affordable broadband, right? The more rural areas you're trying to cover, the cost per subscriber, and Cam can know and talk about this very well, I'm sure, the truck that you send out, the subscribers you put up, if you're only putting 10, 15, 20 subscribers, you're not going to go spend tens and thousands of dollars on the infrastructure. You need it to be cost competitive. Tie that in with tower space and all the physical infrastructure to support it. This EPMP platform from Cambium is about hitting that affordability data point. And with that, I'll finish off with this slide, because this is actually data from a real access point. And what you see is a downlink data in the blue, which essentially says the single user at any given time plus the multi-user. So the green data is what excites me the most, because that tells me this base station is kicking into high gear and are able to push multi-user MIMO data. So you've seen this peak at between 349 and 350 of hitting almost 220 megabits of real user data. This is spread across 50 subscribers, and multi-user MIMO is kicking in a big way. So something like this is really the proof point of the horsepower and the functionality and the technology that you can get out of this platform. With that, at the end of the call, welcome any type of questions. We can talk about future roadmap, how we think about this space, all of that. Last but not least, just wanted to highlight that with the base station comes a multitude of subscriber modules, all, again, focused on the affordability part. So they are cost competitive, yet they pack a strong punch. And with that, I'll hand it over to Cam.
Thanks, 𝐸, appreciate that. And Cambium has obviously been a pretty strategic partner to NextLink as we've rolled forward here in a lot of our builds in various areas. We started off pretty heavily with Ubiquity, but kept running into rip and replace scenarios that just became very cost prohibitive, time and time again, effectively every couple of years. So it's been great to see, this platform that's gotten us to kind of the next level. And as it's matured and allowed us to get a little bit more growth, we've now kind of developed this relationship with Alpha, particularly on some of our sites. Now, kind of put this together real quick on kind of the why we went down this road, the results, what we have, our cost savings, and of course, why Cambium's helping us out with this. So Tim, if you go to the next slide, that'd be great. A little bit about NextLink. We're a service provider based out of Hudson Oak, Texas, serving Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Iowa, Illinois, Nebraska. We have a little over 55,000 customers and growing at a pretty good clip. And we continue to work on this network, and Cambium's been a big part of that. So moving forward on the why, the wind loading, operational decrease in expenses, our faster deployments, et cetera. Additional capacity was kind of the big component, and of course, frequency reuse. Now, the GPS sync capabilities that Cambium has offered has been the most consistent of many radio platforms that I've had a chance to work with over my career, and something I've come to enjoy. So these results that we have here is based on an N = 3. So we are using a twin beam antenna. That's what this antenna particularly helps us cover. It was particularly chosen for lease sites, was the primary driver behind this, where we needed to increase capacity without necessarily increasing our OpEx on sites like American Tower, Crown Castle, et cetera. We just needed to get a lot more performance without having to increase our physical sector count. So we were actually reduced our physical antenna count from 4 down to 3. And in some cases reduced from 6 down to 3. That's obviously shown some OpEx decrease for us in certain areas. This particular example, we did it with a 20 megahertz channel. We obviously saw some improved gain by comparison to the initial antenna, but that's to be expected when you go from a 90 degree down to a 60 degree. So as expected, we did see some increase in actual gain performance. We have very consistent signal levels, as you can see, and modulation levels right across the board. And you can kind of see to the right there, all the groupings and pairings and whatnot. Tim, next slide. This is the live traffic. This is actually a pretty good indication of this particular sector, and essentially all 6 access points on this site were fairly the same and configured with Cambium's guidance to make sure we had the best possible configuration for frequency reuse 3 in that back-to-back scenario. So we're only using a 20 megahertz channel here. You can see we're pushing about 81 megabits down, 2.4 up, and what that catches me the most is our frame utilization rate. We're very low and very efficient. So we're getting very good, as 𝐂𝐸 mentioned earlier, the bits per hertz. We're being very efficient in the use of the radio. And, this is only going to increase. We see similar performance on 40 megahertz channels, but we do try to be pretty good spectrum stewards and only use the channels that we need. We don't just want to squat on 40 if we only need a 20. So this particular site's pretty heavily loaded, all things considered. This particular sector had about 30 people on it. But generally every sector on this site has 30 to 40 or so customers on it, and all of them sit right around the frame utilization of about 50 to 60% at 8 p.m., which is a fairly good peak time. Decreased tower rent. This was a big component to us as we were negotiating tower rents, as many of you all have dealt with in the past. Sometimes they're easier than others as far as the vertical asset vendor that you're working with. Now, we're trying to be very cognizant of the actual wind loading. So squeezing down and essentially reducing the dome material and putting more and more stuff, mounting hardware, et cetera, into one physical antenna, but covering 2 access points, we're able to reduce about 20% of the actual square inches that we take up, by having 2 physical antennas, by reducing that in that particular design, and being able to continue to mount the AP to the back of the antenna, which speeds up the installation. So, we're doing 6 installations effectively the time it takes us to do 3, outside of course, cable runs. So the current, I will add to the current Cambium EPMP3000 antenna that we use has been a great solution for us. We still use it. We'll continue to use it certainly where it makes sense. We do a lot of 4-sector deployments, as I'm sure many of you do. But when we need more density without increasing particularly our OpEx spend, we focus on the 6-sector design, and that allows us to drive capacity up while costs going down. And that's something that we focus on quite a bit. We still do, the �MIMO, which is a big component to it. We see a lot of benefits of that. That was a big focus in this relationship with Alpha and Cambium to make sure we still leverage the multi-user �MIMO component while still increasing the coverage and density that we expect. Tim, I'll let you talk a little bit more about the antenna, and I'll be happy to take questions at the end and see how I can help you all.
Thanks, Cam. Appreciate it. Okay, a little bit about Alpha. So Alpha, we're an Irish-based company. We have well over 20 years experience in designing and manufacturing of antennas and pioneering a lot of different solutions in this particular segment. Surrounding small cell, pseudo omni type of solutions, getting real heavy into doing beamforming and split antenna type of designs like this, because of the industry itself is pushing hard from the operator standpoint, but also from the affordability standpoint, which then drives back the need for evolution of products and technology. We cover everything from low band all the way up through the new 6 gigahertz bands. When we're starting to look now at some of the 7 gigahertz stuff coming out for in the future. But as you're looking at it, there's a lot of different characteristics that you need to take into play when you're dealing with the customers and the technology aspects. Whether it's how you set up your arrays, what directions you do, what's the actual column spacing, those type of things. So we take a lot of that into account when we're designing the antennas, working with our partners like Cambium and NextLink, ensuring we fully understand what their needs are, and making sure that we provide the right solution to provide the performance at the cost points. On this particular approach that we took, we were previously working with Cameron on some different projects when he presented this challenge to us. And one of the biggest things, like he was talking about, is helping overcome and drive down his OpEx costs. As an operator, everyone is dealing with the two largest costs to drive your networks is your MLA partner cost, where you have attachments on the towers, which can be either attachment based or a bucket or a list of how much size and weight type of thing. So anything that you can do to help decrease size, decrease the number of attachments will, replicate itself into a lower monthly costs. Your other biggest one is your access, your actual cost to get broadband out there to serve your customers. So we really focus on, innovative ways to drive down those OpEx costs. So we were working with NextLink and Cambium. Cambium had some requirements, pretty stringent requirements on how to integrate these things together. Their solution itself is designed to, like Sakid was talking about, to provide multi-user MIMO. So column spacing, making sure you have isolation between your arrays and everything else was critical. One of the things that Alpha Wireless ourselves pride ourselves in is that we have an unparalleled development cycle process. So working with NextLink and Cambium on this, we saw the need for this. There was a definite business case and driver to put it in place. And we have the capability to go from concept to actual prototype units, or in some cases, production units in 90 days or less. We do a very good job of making sure we have a process in place that allows us to, get to the solution, quick prototype it, test it, validate it, and get it to market as quick as possible, which is unheard of. And what it really related to was, for Cameron and his guys, was that they were able to get capacity in these sites faster. So through the previous data presented by Sakid and Cameron, it shows that with the integration of the EPMP3000 radio, it was actually showed in the performance predictions as we expected. Here's the overview of what this solution is all about. We have two different models. One is the 3798, which is covers the 4900 up to 5970, and the 3802, which is the 5150 through the 6425, which is the version that Cameron and Sakid and those guys tested with. It's a dual 65 degree array, so it's the actual arrays themselves are set up on a 60-degree separation to give you your sectorization. It also has integrated in the back, you have two radios that are fully integrated, very consistent with the existing Cambium platform. It comes in set up with your cables that actually allow you to tie it in, whether it's got the weather guard on top of it as well. And then work with Cameron and his NextLink guys, we've introduced some new engineering designs in our tilt brackets that allow them to more easily and quickly deploy those on the sites themselves. That's one of the things that was very concerning when they put them up there, is how can they build it as much as possible on the ground, make it as easy as getting it up on top and installing it to help not only from a safety standpoint, also just get them up there and get them installed without dropping hardware and other things off the site. So we've implemented some hardware changes into our platform because of that type of a relationship with these guys. Here's our overall pattern, what it looks like with this new unit. So here we show where the actual patterns themselves are segregated from each other. There is a 65-degree patterns, both of them separated 60 degrees apart. One of the things that we pay real close attention to is because of radio systems are very interference sensitive. So we really take a lot of effort into designing our lobes, side lobes, to minimize as much energy as possible so you can get as much throughput and performance as possible. So in this case here, we have over 18 dB of isolate or side lobe suppression, or upper side lobe suppression in this case, to allow for the lack of energy being spread out into the far field sectors. So again, that really reflects in the overall performance and allows MU-MIMO and just MIMO in general to perform at a higher rate. Based upon those type of things, this is a solution that we had already been working on previously that kind of dovetailed into what we did with Cameron and his solution. So this is a very similar item that we have designed and developed for the for the CBRS market space. So it's a dual 33-degree unit. So this one here actually has designed to do the same thing. It's take optimal performance, allowed you to put 2 antennas in a single sector, 60-degree separation. This one here, we've actually integrated electrical remote tilt. So through AISG2 standards, you can connect to the antenna itself and actually remotely optimize it, or optimize it from the base of the tower by using a AISG controller. This particular solution here has some new technology that we've introduced, where we actually have decreased the side lobes, not only the upper side lobes, but also the actual side lobes from the antenna itself. So what does that mean? Well, that means that what we can do is get you some better, adjacent cell performance gains. With LTE, when you have a reuse of one of the biggest issues to deal with on the LTE side is trying to keep your SIN-R up to allow you get more performance. With this particular solution, we've gotten the actual side lobes themselves down to 20 plus 25 dB lower. So that really helps with interference between your sectors. On the upper side lobe suppression, we actually have 20 dB suppression. So again, very well optimized to help with the LTE networks to be able to take advantage of the 6-sector type of design. We actually have done a fair amount of testing with this. One of our customers in Australia has actually deployed it, and then they've shown about a 2.75 dB gain in their performance of their networks, of showing just a twin 33 degrees versus this new type of design. Going on to different ways of trying to help you reduce your overall cost in your networks when you're deploying. Another innovative solution that we have are these concealed solutions, whether it be a concealed canister solution or a concealed antenna node itself. These things are really built around allowing the operator and the actual OEMs radio systems to be integrated into a package that meets their needs, but also can be pre-built, tested in a warehouse type of environment, and verified that everything's working before you take it out to a cell site, and which really decreases the amount of your labor costs. We've done a couple of different scenarios like this, and have shown that through these type of techniques, you can drop your actual site cost by as much as 55%, 56%. So very, very attractive from a deployment standpoint. Here's a couple of examples of how these things get deployed on pole top, side arms, and then also on the actual rooftop type of situations. So very versatile in their application in the market space. Another item that is being well received in the market for operators like NextLink and other WISPs and actual mobile operators as well is how do you get sites deployed where you have a lot of resistance from municipalities? So these tri-sector solutions here are designed that you can actually mount them to the top of poles, that you can go out and set them right in the ground. So very quick, they're very aesthetically pleasing to municipalities, which allow you to, again, get through that approval process faster, which helps decrease your costs and get you to deployments faster. here's a couple, three scenarios where we've actually leveraged this type of technology to get us into areas that were kind of against it and resistant to it. Johnny Fox's is is a location in Ireland. It's the oldest known pub in Ireland. For the longest time, never had any type of coverage, but through this particular solution and its aesthetics, they were able to get it approved and put on location. And then a couple other different examples where we put one on a rooftop, and then also in a side street here situation. Now we want to take and open it up to some Q&A. So feel free to send whatever questions you have through. Dee will help us moderate this particular part of it, and Cam and I and Sakid will take any questions that you have.
Well, I saw one question already come in from Mr. Powell. So we have about 25 sites worth, or 75 sectors right now, with another 300 or so sites to go of the 6-sector design.
Okay.
Thanks very much. So the first question is for Tim. Are there other cases where customers need consolidated solutions to help overcome performance and coverage challenges?
We actually have seen this to be it's a bigger challenge, bigger issue in the industry. As the operators get out there and actually have as they meet the needs for deployments, there are a number of different obstacles that come up, and people are always looking for ways of trying to solve those. We're keeping an eye on the industry itself, not only working with customers like Cameron and Sakid on their side, is that, we also keep an eye on what's happening in the industry itself. Some of the legislation stuff that gets put in place. We talk with municipalities to find out what things work for them. So we try to take all that information, pull it together, and bring it to a common solution. So, we do have a large portfolio. It's really designed towards that type of an application to help overcome cost at the cell site and deployments. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Tim. And the next question is for Sakid. Is this combined solution available from Cambium, or is it supplied as 2 discrete units?
It's no, Cambium is not offering the antenna. We're selling the base station, so you are more than welcome to buy the antenna from Alpha while you buy the base station from a Cambium distributor. So they are 2 discrete solutions from 2 different vendors, but they work together. And the reason we do this is, for Alpha to sell the base station or vice versa, it just complicates things. So it's better to keep it ecosystem available, but separate.
Okay, thanks very much, Sakid. Cameron, the next question is for you. What type of savings can you advise in terms of tower rentals, etc., when deploying this type of solution?
Sure. It depends on the vertical asset company. Some are obviously more favorable than others. I'm sure a lot of the people on this webinar have had similar experiences. So we have an average saving of at least $150 per month per site on our lease sites. Some as high as $100 a month, some as low as just 75 or so, but the average seems right around 150 to 175.
Thanks very much, Cameron. And Tim, on the 33-degree antenna, is this solution available in the US?
Yes, it is, absolutely.
Thanks very much.
It is readily available. Yep.
And the next question is for Tim. Do you offer an AISG controller that is the network controllable?
Yes, we do. We do have a solution that allows you to, we have a portable unit that actually can go from site to site, or we have a static unit that can be co-located in a cabinet at the base that then is tied in through the LAN system and then managed remotely from a network operation control center. So we have both those solutions that we can offer. We also offer the cables as well, the AISG cables that go from the antenna to the base of the tower, or we have jumpers that you can use as a tech can control them and adjust them before they get installed, or if they have to do maintenance and do it at the tower top. So.
Now, I don't think this question is for anyone in particular, so if anyone wants to jump in, what is gain of antenna? What is the gain of antenna?
On the 3802, it's I'm gonna make sure I get this exactly right.
18 dBi.
Yeah, 18 dBi. Yes. Thank you, Cameron.
Thanks very much.
And very consistent 18 dBi I'll add across the 5.1 to the 6.4 on both polarities. So it's very consistent.
Perfect. Cameron, what's the total amount of customers on your busiest site? And
geez, on our busiest site, probably over 600 or so, if I was going to venture a quick guess. We have some more, but that's various architectures. There's 40 megahertz channels laid in there. I see that. We also have multiple bands there, so it's not just 5 gig, but we'll have CBRS operations there as well. We had one site that I know that was approaching close to 700 before we started putting in some small cells to offload that macro site.
Thank you. Next question, how can we download the antenna pattern file of the AW3795 for network planning tool purposes? Tim.
Yeah, so to download it, you can reach out to us through our different avenues of contact, and then we can actually get you registered on our website where you can actually download the pattern files directly, or we can provide different formats to you. If we, for some reason, we have, we carry the typical ones out there, but if you need something special, a different format, I know like Google has a new format that we have a new converter for that we can convert them over if people need those. But for the most part, we have all the standard versions.
Okay, the next question. So if anyone wants to jump in, what is the max weight of the antenna?
Well, I know from the antenna itself for the 3802, there's this unit is about 17.5 pounds by itself, and then you add in the 2 Cambium radios. And Sakita, I'm not sure how much your radios are, but they're not. I know they're not very heavy.
Right. I'll give you that number, but I think so. I think you answered the question. 17 pounds for the antenna, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll pull up. You can proceed, and I'll pull up the quick weight for you.
No problem. And the next question is for Tim. Is the antenna hardware stainless?
Yes, we do design most all of our brackets as being stainless steel. So they'll, from a weathering standpoint, they are, are very solid. You don't have to worry about it. And I think that was one of the things we worked with Cambium or with Cameron on from the NextLink side, is making sure we have those type of issues addressed up front.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, stainless has, hit or miss opinions throughout the industry. I'm actually a fan of them as long as they're installed correctly. Don't forget to use your anti-seize. But growing up and spending a bulk of my RF career on the coast of Maine, essentially it's stainless or bust. So everything else just wears off too quickly. So that's kind of the approach that I've taken, and I've been happy with it. Again, so long as you use things like your anti-seize, which does come with all the antennas.
Thanks, Cameron.
One thing we do is, as all of the hardware and everything else, actually the bracketry and everything else, is definitely all the stainless stuff, but on the actual fixture, the actual hardware that you bolt it together, those are galvanized units. But the actual brackets are the ones that tend to take a beating when it comes to those things, for sure.
Okay. Next question then. How can we download the antenna pattern file of AW3795 for network planning tool purposes?
Yeah, that's what we just addressed earlier, Dee, is that
Oh,
they
yeah.
reach out to us about that one, yeah.
No problem. Let's see now, just bear with me.
I see a couple of questions on here I can answer real quick, like too. Here are Rajesh, our material is ROHS compliant. It's a ABS type of material, so it's industry standard. It's very transparent when it comes to RF in the design. So when we actually do our antenna designs, we take that into account to make sure that that does not cause any type of issues in the actual patterns. So like what Cameron was talking about, it's like when we do the actual array designs, we'll actually do the designs to make sure we try to keep that gain and performance as flat and consistent as possible over the bandwidth. And then once we do the design on that, then we introduce the actual the material to cover on it. And then we can actually adjust how far away from the actual arrays those are. And based upon that design, it can actually have an impact on the performance of the antenna. So we optimize those to ensure that we take as much of the any type of passive attenuation out of it to get the best performance.
Perfect, thanks, Tim. So the next question is, who are the customers in Canada?
Say that again, Dee.
Sorry, Cameron.
Can you say that again? Didn't quite
Oh,
hear.
apologies. Who are the customers in Canada?
So that's a bit of a vague question, Dinesh. I mean, there's a lot of customers, right, for both Alpha and Cambium, right? You have service providers, wireless service providers. So I think the short answer is there are customers in Canada, but unless, Tim, you want to highlight any of your customers, in our case, it's a varied group of customers.
Yeah, I would say that probably our largest customer in Canada is ExploreNet. They are growing fast. They just recently acquired CCI up there and are very, very broad. I know throughout the central and western part of Canada, or eastern Canada.
Okay. Thanks very much. I think that's all, everything. So I'd just like to thank everyone for joining us today. Today's webinar will be available on demand on the Alpha Wireless website and will also be sent to you via email. So I hope you all have a lovely day. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.